Good afternoon, students. This is SP Smart School Learning Program. The subject is chemistry. We are taking the chapter metals and non-metals. In the previous video, we have discussed the properties of the metals and the properties of the non-metals. So, in this video, we are going to discuss the chemical properties of the metals. Now we will discuss the chemical properties of the metal. So, first chemical property we are going to discuss how the metal is burned in air, what is the reaction with the water, third is how it reacts with the acids, and fourth is how the metal reacts with the other metal salts. Now we will discuss how the metal reacts when it burns in air. So when the metal reacts with oxygen, the metal is more reactive, and when the metal do not react with the oxygen, the metal is less reactive. So we will discuss the first case. Okay, what happens when the metal is burned in the presence of oxygen? So the metal, when reacts with oxygen, it forms metal oxides. These metal oxides are usually basic in nature, but however it also forms the amphotic oxides. So the amphotic oxides show acidic as well as the basic behavior. These metal oxides are insoluble in the water, but some are soluble in the water to make the alkali. So some metal oxides dissolve in water and are called alkalis. Now let us discuss what is the rate of the reaction with the oxygen. So the metals react with the oxygen depend upon the reactivity series of the metal. For example, the potassium and sodium are highly reactive, and when they burn in the presence of oxygen, they react at room temperature even. So then we discuss the magnesium, aluminium, zinc and lead. They react also even at room temperature, but they form a oxide layer when reacts with the oxygen. However, iron do not react with the oxygen, but the iron filling are burned in the presence of oxygen. So we will discuss the case of silver and gold. So we will discuss the silver and gold, how it reacts with oxygen. So the silver and gold do not react with the oxygen. So they are found in the native state. Now we will discuss the chemical reaction of the metal with the water. So we will discuss the order of reactivity as well according to the reaction with the water. So we know that when metal react with water, they form metal oxide and hydrogen. However, if the metal oxides even more soluble, they form metal hydroxide. Now let us discuss the reactivity of the metals. Some metals react with the cold water, most of them not. Some reacts with the warm water, and some reacts with the steam. So the metal which react with the cold water are more reactive, and the metal that reacts with the steam are less reactive metal. Now we will discuss the case of potassium and sodium. Potassium and sodium reacts with cold water vigorously and violently, and the hydrogen gas evolves, catches fire. This is an exothermic reaction. So the potassium and sodium reacts with water to form potassium hydroxide and sodium hydroxide, and the hydrogen gas is evolved. Now we will discuss the case of calcium. Calcium when reacts with cold water, but the reaction is not vigorous or violent in comparison to the potassium and sodium. The hydrogen gas bubbles stick to the metal surface and the metal float in the water. But the magnesium do not react with the cold water. The magnesium reacts with the warm water, and the hydrogen gas bubbles also stick to the metal surface, and the metal floats in the warm water. So the potassium, sodium and calcium reacts with the cold water, but the magnesium reacts with the hot water or warm water. Now we will discuss the case of aluminium, zinc, gold, silver and copper. Aluminium, iron and zinc, when reacts with the steam, they form metal oxide and hydrogen. And the metals like gold, silver, copper and lead do not react with the water. So the aluminium, zinc, iron reacts with the steam, and the lead, copper, mercury, silver and gold do not react with the water. Previously we have discussed the reaction of the metal with the oxygen and water. So we have a series of metal which are highly reactive and which are less reactive. Let us discuss the reaction of the metals with the acids. So acid make the compound to react easily. Metal when react with the acid, they form salt and hydrogen gas. Now let us discuss the case of potassium and sodium when reacts with HCl. What is the reaction? So when the potassium and the sodium reacts with the HCl, the reaction is very vigorous and furious reaction. However, the magnesium when reacts with the dilute HCl, they form magnesium chloride and hydrogen gas is evolved. Also we can see the formation of bubbles. So same is the reaction with the aluminium, zinc and iron. They form the chlorides and the hydrogen gas. So the rate of formation of the bubbles is maximum in the case of magnesium. Now we'll discuss the case of copper. The copper do not react with the hydrochloric acid. So now let us change the acid. We will take the nitric acid. So the reaction of the copper with the nitric acid, there is no evolution of hydrogen gas. However, the hydrogen is oxidized to water by the nitric acid, as the nitric acid is the strong oxidizing agent. So the hydrogen gas is oxidized to water. Now we will discuss the case of silver and gold. So the silver and gold do not react with any of the acids, but it reacts with the aqua regia. So the Latin word is aqua regia is royal water. So how the aqua regia is formed, let us discuss. Aqua regia is prepared by the concentrated hydrochloric acid and the concentrated nitric acid in the ratio of 3:1. So aqua regia is very strong solution which can dissolve the gold as well. Now we will discuss when one metal reacts with the salt solution of the other metal. So the concept behind this reaction is that the less reactive metal is displaced by the more reactive metal. So if the metal A is more reactive than the metal B, then we have a solution, that is the salt solution of metal A, and the metal B will be displaced by the metal A from its salt solution. To understand this, let us take a copper wire and an iron nail. So take two test tubes. In one we are filling iron sulfate and in two we are filling the copper sulfate. Now we will place the copper in the iron sulfate and the iron nail in the copper sulfate solution. After some time we will find that the reaction has occurred in the test tube B, as the iron when reacts with the copper sulfate solution, the iron sulfate is formed and the copper is displaced from its salt solution. So there is a reddish brown color, that is of copper, on the iron nail. So the copper is displaced by the iron. Now we will discuss the case 1 where the iron sulfate solution and the copper has been reacting. So in the test tube A, there will be no reaction. Why? Because the copper is less reactive than the iron, so it does not displaces the iron from its salt solution. So there will be no reaction in the test tube A, and there will be a displacement reaction in the test tube B. So we have discussed the reaction with the oxygen, water, acids, and how the metals react with the other metals. So there is a series of metal. Some metals are more reactive while the other metals are less reactive. So the potassium, sodium are more reactive, whereas silver and gold are least reactive metal. And the reactivity decreases as we move from top to the bottom.